In the deep silence before creation, when the sky had no name and the earth had not yet awakened, there was only the vast emptiness called Ginnungagap, the yawning void. From this eternal nothingness, two realms emerged. Muspelheim, the world of fire and light, and Niflheim, the world of frost and shadow. Where their forces met, life began to stir. And from that first breath of cosmic tension, the Norse spoke of the tree that would hold the worlds together. Yggdrasil, the world tree. Yet Yggdrasil was not merely a tree. It was existence itself. A living axis that connected all realms, all destinies, and all souls. Its branches stretched beyond the heavens, its roots plunged into the realms of the dead, and its trunk bridged the worlds of gods, giants, humans, and spirits. It was said that every being, every fate, every ripple of time found its anchor in the veins of that sacred ash. But what scholars rarely tell us is that Yggdrasil was more than myth. It was a map of consciousness, a spiritual code hidden in Norse cosmology. Like the sacred trees of other ancient cultures, the Egyptian sycamore of Nut, the Mesopotamian Halupu tree, the Hindu Ashvatha, and the Celtic Cran Bethad, Yggdrasil symbolized the divine structure of the universe. The connection between the physical, the spiritual, and the eternal. At the highest branch of Yggdrasil sat Asgard, home of the gods, radiant, ordered, and filled with wisdom. Below it lay Midgard, the realm of humans, bound by the tree's trunk. Beneath, in the deepest roots, stretched Helheim, the land of the dead. And between these layers ran invisible threads, paths of light and shadow where unseen beings traveled, carrying whispers from one realm to another. According to the ancient skalds, even the gods themselves were not beyond Yggdrasil's law. They drew strength from it, depended upon it, and gathered around it to hold their councils. Every morning, the Norns, mysterious women of fate, would draw water from the sacred well of Urd to nourish its roots, keeping destiny alive. And yet, even this divine tree trembled. For the old sagas say that Yggdrasil was not eternal. It aged, it bled sap like tears, and its bark was gnawed by serpents in the underworld. The cosmos it upheld was constantly threatened, by decay, by chaos, by the approach of Ragnarok. What is often overlooked is the profound symbolic meaning hidden in this cycle. The Tree of Worlds, constantly renewed yet perpetually suffering, reflects the eternal dance between order and dissolution, between life's longing for meaning and the universe's indifference. To the Norse mind, this was not despair, but wisdom. They understood that even the gods must endure entropy, and that true immortality lies not in resisting death, but in embracing the cycle of rebirth. The Vikings, fierce in battle yet deeply philosophical, saw Yggdrasil as both sanctuary and prophecy. To carve its symbol upon wood or stone was to acknowledge one's place in the great web of existence. Every life, no matter how brief, was a leaf upon its branches, destined to fall, yet to nourish the roots of future generations. In this way, Yggdrasil was a mirror of human destiny. But where did this image come from? Was it purely Norse, or did it descend from something older, more universal? Ancient myths across Eurasia tell of trees that connect heaven, earth, and the underworld. Cosmic pillars where gods descend and souls ascend. The Sumerians spoke of the tree planted by the waters of Eridu, tended by the goddess Inanna. The Persians revered the tree of all seeds, in the center of creation. The shamanic peoples of Siberia, long before the Norse, climbed the world tree in trance to speak with the spirits of the sky. Could it be that Yggdrasil is but one expression of an archetype, a sacred symbol echoing through human memory, resurfacing under different names and forms, as if all cultures were trying to describe the same cosmic truth? For the Norse, Yggdrasil was not merely a bridge of worlds, but a living testament to the invisible law that binds existence. Every creature upon it played a role in the eternal story. High above, an eagle spread its wings, watching the heavens. Between its eyes perched a hawk named Vedrfolnir, the storm pale, symbol of insight and vision. Along the trunk scampered Ratatoskr, the mischievous squirrel who carried insults between the eagle above and the dragon Nidhogg below, a message of duality, of conflict inherent in creation. Beneath the roots, Nidhogg gnawed endlessly, trying to destroy the tree that gave life to all, a serpent of decay and desire, ever consuming the foundations of being. And yet Yggdrasil endured. Not because it was immune to destruction, but because its destruction was part of the story itself. The Norse did not believe in eternal preservation. They believed in cycles. death feeding life, endings birthing beginnings. When Yggdrasil would finally tremble and fall at Ragnarok, it would also give birth to a new world rising from the sea, green and pure once more. This is the secret many modern scholars miss when treating Yggdrasil as mere myth. It was never meant to be just a cosmic diagram or a poetic metaphor. It was a vision of reality, one that teaches that existence is woven from both light and shadow, that divinity breathes through both creation and decay. The tree's trembling was not a sign of weakness, but of life. For to live is to change, to endure, to renew. In the old tongues, the name Yggdrasil itself hides a mystery. Ygg was one of Odin's many names, meaning the terrible one, and Drasil means horse. Yggdrasil, therefore, translates as Odin's horse, a name that encodes the story of the god's own sacrifice upon the tree. For 9 nights, Odin hung from Yggdrasil, pierced by his spear, without food or drink, seeking the wisdom of the runes, the sacred symbols of creation. In that act of death and revelation, the god himself became the bridge between worlds, riding the tree as one rides fate. To hang upon Yggdrasil was not a punishment, but a spiritual initiation, a descent into the underworld of the self, and a rebirth into divine knowledge. The tree, therefore, was not only cosmic but personal. It represented the path of transformation, the inner journey of every soul that dares to confront the unknown and emerge renewed. This was the forgotten wisdom behind the myth, the secret that many scholars, bound to literal interpretations, rarely unveil. Yggdrasil was never only about the gods. It was about us, about the human spirit's endless climb toward understanding, the pain and beauty of being bound to a living cosmos. It was the silent reminder that even amid decay and chaos, there is order, there is meaning, there is life beyond death. For those who truly listen, Yggdrasil still whispers. Its roots reach into the collective soul of humanity. Its branches cradle the dreams of eternity. And beneath its shade, the ancient secret waits, the same secret our ancestors knew before books, before temples, before even the first name of God. The ancient Norse poets never wrote their myths as dogma. They sang them as living memory. In smoky longhouses under northern stars, skalds would recite the tale of Yggdrasil not as a story to be believed, but as a truth to be remembered. For to them, myth was not fiction. It was revelation, a symbolic language through which the unseen spoke to the human heart. The tree stood at the center of that revelation. Around it, everything was ordered. Gods in their celestial halls, men in their mortal struggles, and spirits in the shadowed realms below. The tree was the center of all balance. Yet that balance was fragile, always trembling between harmony and ruin. At the topmost branches, the eagle spread its wings over the heavens, symbol of divine intellect, of pure perception. Between its eyes rested the hawk Vedrfolnir, the eye within the eye, representing the insight beyond vision, the still awareness beyond thought. But below, in the deep roots, the dragon Nidhogg gnawed relentlessly, embodying the forces that erode and corrupt all things. This eternal tension, the bird of light above, the serpent of darkness below, was the rhythm of existence itself. Between them, the squirrel Ratatoskr darted back and forth, carrying messages, insults, and whispers. The Norse knew this was not merely comic imagery. Ratatoskr represented the restless human mind, the messenger of chaos that keeps the worlds in motion. Between the high and the low, the mind runs, feeding the conflict, maintaining the necessary tension that sustains creation. Thus, Yggdrasil was not a peaceful tree. It was a living battlefield, a map of divine struggle. Even the gods themselves were participants in its drama, each embodying one aspect of its great law. Odin was its seeker of wisdom, Thor its guardian of order, Loki its spark of chaos, the Norns its keepers of fate. Each god, each creature, each root and branch was a reflection of one universal principle: that life is born from conflict, from the friction between creation and destruction. But in this cosmic theater, one mystery stands above all others: Odin's self-sacrifice upon the tree. According to the Havamal, the sayings of the High One, Odin hung himself on Yggdrasil for 9 nights and 9 days, wounded by his own spear, suspended between life and death. No one aided him, no voice answered his cries. The world fell silent as he gazed into the abyss. And there, in that silence, he discovered the runes. the sacred symbols of power that shaped the cosmos. This was the moment of divine awakening, the gods' descent into darkness to bring back light. To the uninitiated, it seems a tale of torture. But to those who understand the language of myth, it is the story of the soul's initiation. Odin's hanging was not suicide. It was transcendence. The tree was not his gallows. It was his bridge. He did not die to escape life, but to understand it. In surrendering himself to the void, he became one with the rhythm of the universe, gaining the wisdom of creation and the power to shape destiny through words, symbols, and will. This ancient image resonates far beyond Norse myth. Across cultures, the enlightened being is one who descends into the abyss to bring back wisdom. The shaman who journeys through death to heal the tribe, the sage who endures darkness to glimpse truth, the hero who sacrifices self to awaken the divine within. Yggdrasil, therefore, is not only a cosmic map, it is the initiation path of consciousness itself. Every human, in some way, must hang upon their own Yggdrasil. Each must face their personal darkness, the chaos, the suffering, the mystery of existence, and emerge transformed. This is why the Norse never separated mythology from life. To them, the gods' struggles were mirrors of their own. When Odin hung upon the tree, so did every soul that ever sought meaning amid pain. And in that pain lies revelation. For Yggdrasil, though immense and sacred, suffers continually. The serpent's venom burns its roots. The stag's antlers scrape its bark. The elements weather its crown. Yet it endures. It grows. It heals itself. And so does the human spirit. The Norse saw in the trees suffering the symbol of resilience, that even as time corrodes all things, life continues to push upward toward the light. Every morning at the well of Urd, the three Norns, Urd, Verdandi, and Skald, gather to weave the threads of destiny. They pour sacred water and white clay upon the roots, renewing Yggdrasil's life. These are not mere mythic figures, but embodiments of time itself. Urd, the past that anchors us. Verdandi, the present that unfolds. Skald, the future that calls. Together, they weave the tapestry of fate, not as punishment or blessing, but as the natural flow of cause and consequence. In the old belief, even the gods were bound by the Norns' weaving. Odin might see the threads, Thor might fight to preserve them, but none could escape the pattern. Only by understanding the weave could one find wisdom, the wisdom of accepting destiny, not resisting it. And this, too, is part of Yggdrasil's hidden secret. The tree itself is woven from time. Its rings mark the ages, its roots drink from the wells of the past, its branches stretch into the unknown. To meditate upon the tree was to see the universe not as linear, but cyclical, an endless turning of birth, growth, decay, and renewal. What modern scholars often overlook is that the Norse vision of time was profoundly spiritual. They did not believe in a single moment of creation followed by an endless decline. Instead, they saw existence as an eternal pulse, a breathing cosmos that dies and is reborn. Ragnarok, the doom of the gods, was not the end, but a transformation. The moment when the old tree falls, and from its seed, a new world rises. This vision of cosmic renewal gave the Norse their fierce courage. They knew the world would burn, that even the gods would perish. Yet they fought, built, and dreamed as though eternity depended on their strength. For them, heroism was not victory. It was endurance. To act nobly even when doom is certain. That was their definition of faith. And perhaps this is the deepest lesson of Yggdrasil, that the purpose of life is not to escape decay, but to create meaning within it. The tree teaches that all things are sacred precisely because they are transient. Each moment, each struggle, each act of courage nourishes the roots of creation. The Norse poet said that after Ragnarok, when the fires cool and the seas recede, a new world will emerge. Upon that newborn earth, untouched by corruption, a man and woman will rise from the shelter of Yggdrasil's roots, Lif and Lifthraser, the seeds of humanity renewed. They will walk beneath a clear sky, where the sun, reborn from her mother's ashes, will shine upon a peaceful age. The gods will return, the tree will bloom again, and the cycle will begin anew. This myth, often seen as grim, is in truth one of hope. It tells us that even when all seems lost, life finds a way. Destruction is but a doorway to rebirth. And in that rebirth lies the eternal mystery. The pulse of Yggdrasil, beating within the heart of all existence. So when the skalds spoke of the tree trembling, they were not predicting doom. They were describing the trembling of life itself, the vibration that holds all worlds together, from the highest realm of the gods to the depths of Helheim. It is the same trembling that lives in our own hearts, the same current that moves through stars, rivers, and dreams. For Yggdrasil is not out there, standing in some far northern sky. It is within us. Its roots are in our memory. Its trunk is our spirit. Its branches are our aspirations. To know Yggdrasil is to remember what we are, children of a living cosmos, woven into the divine web of time. The more one studies Yggdrasil, the more it ceases to be a myth and begins to feel like a mirror of reality, a metaphysical architecture underlying existence itself. To the ancient Norse, the tree was not only the center of the world, it was the world. Every branch, every root, every creature upon it corresponded to a realm of being, a state of consciousness, a spiritual vibration within the great pattern of life. The Eddas speak of 3 great roots, each descending into a different world, each drinking from a different well of wisdom. The first reaches into Asgard, the realm of the gods, and drinks from the well of Urd, where the Norns dwell and destiny is woven. The second extends to Jotunheim, the land of the giants, and drinks from Mimir's well, guarded by the wise being Mimir, whose head alone holds the secrets of time. The third route plunges into Niflheim, the world of ice and mist, where the serpent Nidhogg feeds on corpses and chews at the root of existence itself. Each of these roots symbolizes a fundamental truth about life: creation, wisdom, and decay. The first, reaching the gods, represents divine order and the sacred pattern that holds all things together. The second, extending toward the giants, represents the search for knowledge and the wisdom that comes through struggle. The third, sinking into darkness, represents mortality, entropy, and the hidden law that every beginning must find its end. Together, they form the triad of existence: birth, growth, and death, endlessly repeating, endlessly renewing. But what few realize is that these wells, Urds, Mimirs, and Fergelmir, are not merely physical places. They are states of consciousness. To drink from the well of Urd is to touch the flow of time itself, to see how the past gives birth to the present. To drink from Mimir's well is to awaken the eye of wisdom, to see beneath illusion. And to descend toward Fergelmir, where venom and decay dwell, is to confront the primal shadow, the unconscious depths of being. The mystic who travels through these wells symbolically retraces the journey of Odin himself, a path that leads not outward but inward. The sagas say that Odin once gave his eye to drink from Mimir's well. In doing so, he accepted the cost of vision. To see truth, one must lose part of oneself. Mimir's well was guarded beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, and its waters contained the memory of all creation. When Odin sacrificed his eye, he did not lose sight. He gained inner sight, the ability to perceive the hidden web connecting all events and all beings. That is why his remaining eye was said to shine with both sadness and wisdom. For to truly see is to recognize the beauty and sorrow of the universe as one. In this act, we find another layer of Yggdrasil's secret. The tree teaches that knowledge demands sacrifice. Every root of wisdom is fed by the blood of surrender. The Norse, who lived amid harsh winters and relentless seas, understood that truth is never given freely. It must be earned through endurance. The gods themselves were not omnipotent but bound by cosmic law. Even Odin, All-Father, was not above the tree. He hung from it, bled for it, served it. The message was clear: to become divine, one must serve something greater than oneself. The tree's second great root, the one that touches the realm of giants, represents that struggle. The Jotnar were not mere monsters, as later tales suggest. They were forces of raw creation, primal and untamed. The gods needed them as much as they opposed them. For in the Norse mind, there was no absolute evil, only imbalance. The giants symbolized the chaotic energy that gives rise to form. Without them, Yggdrasil would have no nourishment, for creation itself is born from tension. The interaction between gods and giants was, in truth, a reflection of the eternal dialogue between order and chaos, the two halves of cosmic being. Every mythic battle between them was an allegory for the forces that move within the soul: reason against instinct, discipline against desire, light against shadow. Yet both sides are necessary. Without chaos, order becomes sterile. Without order, chaos consumes itself. The tree survives only because both coexist, feeding its roots and shaping its destiny. And then there is the third root, the one that sinks into the icy darkness of Niflheim. Here lies the greatest mystery of all. The well called Hvergelmir is said to be the source of all rivers, the fountain of primal life. Yet it is also the dwelling of Nidhogg, the serpent who gnaws at the root, feeding on corpses and shadow. This, the Norse believed, was not evil in a moral sense, but natural. The serpent's work was necessary. Just as decay feeds the soil, so too does destruction feed creation. Nidhogg's venom corrodes, but it also renews. Without death, there could be no rebirth. In this dark root we find the Norse answer to the great question that haunted all civilizations. Why does suffering exist? Their answer was neither despair nor denial. They saw pain as sacred, decay as divine. To the Norse spirit, to suffer was to participate in the cosmic process, to give back to the tree the nourishment of experience. Every tear, every fall, every death was an offering to Yggdrasil's roots. In this way, existence was not tragedy but balance, a sacred exchange between the mortal and the eternal. If we look deeper, Yggdrasil reveals itself not only as a cosmological symbol but as a spiritual map of the human condition. The upper branches, radiant and open to the sky, represent consciousness, the higher mind, the divine awareness within. The trunk, strong and grounded, is the self, the identity that endures the winds of life. The roots, buried deep in the earth, are the unconscious, the realm of shadow, instinct, and ancestral memory. The entire tree is the soul, stretching between heaven and hell, between what we know and what we fear. To meditate upon Yggdrasil is to remember that all realms exist within us. The gods are our ideals, the giants our passions, the dead our forgotten selves. We, too, are trees, growing, trembling, shedding leaves, yearning for light. The Norse understood this intuitively. That is why their myths never separated the human from the divine. They believed that when one acted with courage, the gods themselves were strengthened, for every human act echoed through the branches of Yggdrasil. Among the most profound of the old teachings was the belief that the tree sings, that through its sap flows the song of existence. This sound, the ancient poet said, could be heard by those who stilled their minds and listened with the heart. It was the same vibration that held the 9 worlds together, the same hum that pulsed in the stars. Modern physics might call it frequency or resonance. The ancients called it spirit, the living breath that animates all things. This, perhaps, is what Odin encountered in his 9 nights of hanging, the living voice of Yggdrasil. When he cried out and the runes revealed themselves, it was not through speech but through vibration, through the recognition that every symbol, every letter, every sound carries the pattern of creation. The runes were not just an alphabet, they were keys to the cosmic song, each representing a force of nature, a principle of existence. To know them was to speak the language of the tree. Even today, echoes of that wisdom survive. The idea of the axis mundi, the world axis, appears in nearly every ancient culture. The Mayans built temples as sacred mountains linking heaven and earth. The Hindus speak of Mount Meru, the cosmic pillar. The Egyptians revered the Djed, symbol of stability and resurrection. All of them are variations of the same truth, that the universe has a living center, a point where the physical meets the spiritual. For the Norse, that point was Yggdrasil, the ever-living axis of worlds. And so, Yggdrasil was not merely mythology. It was a statement about reality itself. It taught that life is unity and diversity, that all opposites meet in one sacred structure. It told humanity that to live well, one must live in balance, between thought and instinct, light and dark, action and surrender. It whispered that every being, from the smallest insect to the mightiest god, plays a part in sustaining the great tree. In that vision, there is no separation between the cosmos and the soul. The world outside and the world within are one and the same. To understand Yggdrasil is to understand oneself. And perhaps that is why, even after 1,000 years, the myth continues to speak, not as a tale of the past, but as a living truth waiting to be remembered. In the oldest verses of the Völuspá, the seeress speaks of a time before time, when there was neither sand nor sea, neither cool waves nor warm winds, only the yawning void Ginnungagap. Out of that silence, the first vibration rose, the song that would give birth to Yggdrasil. It was not built, nor planted, nor created by hand. It grew, for in the Norse vision, even the cosmos itself is alive, organic, breathing, ever-changing. Yggdrasil's first roots emerged in the mists of Niflheim, where the frost of nothingness met the sparks of Muspelheim. From that union came the first stirrings of matter, energy, and time. The tree's trunk stretched upward, seeking the invisible, and its branches unfurled like veins of light across the heavens. The gods were born around it, not as rulers of the world, but as caretakers of its balance. The Norns came forth next, the silent weavers who would tend the tree's destiny for all eternity. The Norns were not mere goddesses. They were the weavers of existence. Their well, Erdebrunn, lies beneath the root that reaches into Asgard. Every morning, they draw water from that sacred well and pour it over the tree's roots, mixing it with white clay so that Yggdrasil remains evergreen and alive. This image, 3 women tending the roots of the cosmic tree, is among the most profound symbols in all myth. It represents the eternal maintenance of life, the unseen forces that nourish the universe from below. Each Norn embodies a dimension of time. Ord, the past, that which has already unfolded, the foundation upon which all else is built. Verdandi, the present, the living moment, ever becoming, ever transforming. Skuld, the future, that which must come, born from the choices of now. Yet these are not fixed points. They weave together continuously, forming the tapestry of fate. What one does in the present feeds the roots of the past and branches toward the future. In that vision, time is not linear but cyclical, an endless spiral. The Norse saw destiny not as imprisonment but as participation. To live was to weave with the Norns, to shape one's own strand within the great design. The tree's leaves trembled with the echo of every action, every word, every thought. Even the gods could feel those tremors, for none were beyond the reach of fate. Odin himself was bound by it. He did not rule fate. He sought to understand it. That is why he hung upon Yggdrasil, not as a conqueror of destiny, but as one who surrenders to it fully, so that through that surrender, true wisdom might be born. When he fell into the void for 9 nights, he was reborn with the runes, the symbols that describe the pattern of the cosmos. The runes are the tree's language, the vibration of its sap turned into sound and symbol. To speak them was to awaken their living power. In that sense, Yggdrasil is not just a tree. It is the cosmic nervous system transmitting divine energy through every level of reality. Its roots are the past, its trunk is the present, its branches are the future. Its leaves are worlds. Its sap is life itself. To live within the tree is to exist within that divine circuit, to be part of the endless flow between creation and dissolution. At the base of one of its roots sits Mimir's well, the source of wisdom. Mimir, whose very name means memory, is the guardian of knowledge older than the gods. When the great wars of the Aesir and Vanir ended, Mimir was beheaded, but Odin preserved his head with herbs and incantations. Even in death, Mimir's wisdom endured, a symbol that memory survives even when form perishes. From his well, Odin drank after giving his eye, seeing not the future as a prophet, but the eternal pattern behind all futures. To drink from Mimir's well is to awaken what the Norse called Minni, the deep remembrance of being. This is not memory as recollection of events, but the soul's remembrance of its divine nature. The mystics of every tradition speak of such remembrance. The Greek anamnesis, the Hindu smrti, the Gnostic awakening. To remember oneself is to remember that one is a leaf of the tree, inseparable from its life. The third and deepest root of Yggdrasil plunges into the misty world of Niflheim, where the dragon Nidhogg dwells. Here lies the well for Gelmir, whose name means bubbling cauldron. From it flow all the rivers of the worlds, each carrying the essence of life to distant realms. Yet beneath those waters, Nidhogg gnaws endlessly at the root, seeking to consume it. Around him, countless serpents coil and slither, their movements whispering of corruption, entropy, and transformation. It is easy to see Nidhogg as evil, as the enemy of life. But to the Norse mind, that interpretation would be incomplete. The serpent is not a destroyer without purpose. It is part of the cycle. It gnaws the root so that decay may give rise to new growth. Just as fire clears the forest for fresh life, Nidhogg's venom ensures that Yggdrasil never becomes stagnant. It embodies what the Norse called Wyrd, the ever-turning process of becoming. In this way, Yggdrasil contains its own death within its life. Every being upon it, gods, men, and beasts, is born, flourishes, and fades, feeding the next. The tree trembles, but it does not fall. Even at Ragnarok, when fire devours its branches and the serpent rises to poison the sky, Yggdrasil will not die in vain. For within its ashes sleeps the seed of rebirth. From that seed, the next tree will rise, carrying the memory of all that came before, a cosmic reincarnation of existence itself. This vision reveals an astonishing depth of spiritual understanding. It shows that the Norse saw the universe not as a static order created once and for all, but as a living process, constantly dying and regenerating. Their myth was not a story of origin. It was a story of continuity. Even in destruction there is life. Even in darkness, there is light waiting to be born. Modern scholars often speak of Norse mythology as fatalistic, but that is a misunderstanding. The Norse did not worship doom, they honored the courage to face it. To live knowing that all things must end, yet still create, still fight, still love, that was the essence of their faith. They believed that the gods themselves would meet their fate not with fear, but with dignity. Odin would fall to Fenrir, Thor to Jormungandr, Freyr to Surt, and yet through their fall, the new dawn would come. The image of Yggdrasil trembling at Ragnarok is thus not a symbol of despair but of transformation. When the tree quivers, the worlds remember their mortality. When its leaves burn, the seeds of renewal scatter through the void. And from the waters that rise afterward, a green world blooms again, a reflection of the human soul's endless journey through death and rebirth. But Yggdrasil is not only the structure of the cosmos, it is also the structure of the human spirit. The Norse understood that the same pattern that governs the worlds governs the heart. Every person is their own tree of life, with roots buried in the ancestral past, branches reaching for the divine, and a trunk holding the tension of existence. The trials one endures are the gnawings of Nidhogg. The moments of clarity are the whispers of the eagle above. The restless mind that moves between them is Ratatoskr, the messenger within. To live consciously is to become aware of one's own tree, to nourish its roots with remembrance, to strengthen its trunk with integrity, and to let its branches grow toward wisdom. When the old sagas speak of warriors seeking Valhalla, they speak not merely of a place in the sky but of a state of being, the triumph of the soul that stands unshaken amid chaos, rooted like Yggdrasil in the face of storms. And perhaps this is the true secret hidden in the myth, that Yggdrasil is not a distant cosmic symbol, but the map of awakening itself. Each of its 9 worlds represents a stage of consciousness, from the material to the divine. The hero's journey through those realms is not a voyage across space but a journey inward, toward the realization that heaven and hell, God and giant, life and death, are all part of one infinite tree. The Norse may have spoken of it in thunder and frost, in ravens and runes, but the message remains timeless. The tree still stands. It grows in the invisible space between all things, in the rhythm of breath, in the heartbeat of the earth. And if one listens closely, in silence, in solitude, in reverence, one might still hear it whisper, "Everything that was, is, and will be is already growing within you." When one contemplates Yggdrasil deeply, the mind begins to perceive that it is more than a myth. It is an ancient language of truth, encrypted in image and rhythm. The Norse poets did not merely describe the world, they described the structure of consciousness itself. The 9 realms that hang upon the tree are not distant planets, but levels of reality, reflections of what the human soul experiences across its evolution. At the roots, we find Niflheim, the world of mist and shadow, the realm of primordial inertia, where potential has not yet taken form. It is the deep unconscious, the womb of all things, the chaos that precedes creation. Every beginning lies hidden in its fog. In the human being, it represents the depth of the psyche, the place where forgotten memories sleep, where fear and desire take shape before they ever reach the surface of thought. Above it burns Muspelheim, the world of flame, pure energy, will, and creation. It is the spark that awakens potential, the first act of divine intention. Fire and ice, will and stillness, passion and emptiness. Their eternal collision gives rise to existence. The ancient poets saw this not as a war but as a dance, for it is through tension that life breathes. Between these two extremes stands Midgard, the human world. It is neither entirely divine nor entirely mortal. A middle realm, a bridge. Humanity exists in that balance. Half chaos, half order, half instinct, half spirit. To live in Midgard is to walk the tightrope between heaven and abyss, between what we have been and what we may yet become. The other worlds, Alfheim, Svartalfheim, Jotunheim, Vanaheim, Asgard, and Hel, mirror aspects of this internal landscape. Alfheim, the realm of light elves, reflects the intuitive mind, where beauty, inspiration, and artistry arise. Svartalfheim, the realm of dwarves, is the forge of transformation, where the raw materials of the soul are shaped by discipline and labor into something enduring. The dwarves, like alchemists, take the darkness within and make of it gold, just as a person may take their suffering and forge wisdom from it. Jotunheim, the land of giants, represents the forces of chaos, nature, and instinct, not evil, but immense. The giants embody what is beyond human control. Storms, time, the wilderness of the heart. They are the mirror of our limitations. The gods must continually contend with them, for to live is to wrestle with forces greater than oneself. Without that struggle, no growth can occur. Vanaheim, the world of the Vanir gods, speaks of harmony with nature, fertility, and cycles, the wisdom of seasons and the sacredness of the earth. It reflects the part of humanity that seeks balance, that honors life as a continual rhythm rather than a conquest. Asgard, high in the branches, is the world of the Aesir, the gods of order and consciousness. Odin, Thor, Frigg, and the shining host who stand as archetypes of will and awareness. To reach Asgard is to ascend the ladder of perception, to awaken divine understanding. Yet even Asgard depends on the tree. Even gods must bow to Yggdrasil, for they exist within it, not above it. Finally, Hel, often misunderstood, lies not as a place of punishment but of rest and renewal. It is the shadow of existence, cold, still, and necessary. The goddess Hel, half living and half dead, is not the enemy of life but its mirror. She keeps what must be transformed. In that sense, Hel is the realm of reflection, where souls confront the truth of what they have been before they can rise again. When these realms are seen not as geography but as psychology, Yggdrasil becomes a complete map of inner evolution. To journey through it is to pass through every state of being, from unconscious shadow to divine light. The roots hold our origins, the branches hold our destiny, and the trunk, the narrow, difficult path in between, is the life we live now. In the center of that trunk stands the human being, the eternal traveler. The Norse understood that the human condition itself is a form of pilgrimage, a continual crossing between worlds. They saw the soul not as static, but as a wanderer that climbs the tree again and again, learning through each life, through each death. This vision aligns with something profoundly universal. Across cultures, the tree of life reappears. In the Babylonian Halupu tree, the Hindu Ashvatha, the Celtic Cran Bethad, the biblical tree in Eden. Each culture saw in the tree a sacred image, roots deep in the unseen, branches stretching toward heaven, trunk standing as the bridge between. It is as if all humanity has always remembered, in some secret way, that existence itself is arboreal. But the Norse version is unique in its brutal honesty. It does not promise a perfect paradise nor eternal peace. It tells us that even the cosmic tree suffers. It trembles, bleeds, and endures. Its leaves wither. Its bark is bitten by stags. Its roots are gnawed by serpents. The world, it says, is not free from pain. Yet that pain is part of its holiness. For without suffering, there can be no strength. Without decay, no renewal. In this way, Yggdrasil speaks to the most profound truth of the human heart: endurance. The sagas teach that greatness does not lie in avoiding death but in facing it with honor. The gods themselves are destined to die, and they know it. Odin's quest for wisdom, Thor's battles, Freya's tears, all are acts of defiance against the inevitable. The Norse hero does not seek immortality of body but of spirit. That is why, when the tree shakes and the sky burns, the story does not end. After Ragnarok, the world rises anew, and in the dew of Yggdrasil, two humans emerge, Lif and Lifthraser, life and eager for life. They find shelter in the tree's embrace during the final destruction, and from them, humanity is reborn. This is not simply a tale of survival. It is a metaphor for consciousness itself. Even when all forms are destroyed, the seed of awareness remains, hidden within the eternal tree. To understand Yggdrasil, therefore, is to understand that life is resilient beyond comprehension. Even in times of despair, the sap of renewal flows unseen beneath the bark. The Norse poets captured this truth in imagery rather than doctrine, because the tree cannot be explained, only experienced. It is both the structure of the universe and the pulse of every living thing. And perhaps the greatest mystery of all is that Yggdrasil exists within each of us. The same roots that touch the abyss of Niflheim reach into the depths of our subconscious. The same branches that glitter in Asgard rise through our imagination, dreams, and hopes. The same well of memory from which Odin drank lies buried within the human spirit, the source of intuition, insight, and remembrance. This is why, in the old wisdom, initiation always meant a symbolic death, a descent into the roots of the tree. To climb toward the light, one must first be buried in darkness. Odin's hanging upon Yggdrasil is not an act of despair but initiation, a blueprint of inner awakening. He becomes his own sacrifice, giving up his old self so that a higher consciousness may be born. 9 nights of silence, 9 steps into the abyss, until the runes reveal themselves, not as inventions of the mind, but as discoveries from within. Each rune is a vibration of existence, a key to the living fabric of the cosmos. They are not letters, they are forces, the same forces that course through the tree itself. When spoken with understanding, they do not describe reality. They move it. To the initiate, Yggdrasil thus becomes not just an image of the world but a living temple. The roots are the underworld, the mysteries of shadow, fear, and memory. The trunk is the human path, strength, courage, and the discipline to endure. The branches are the heavens, insight, illumination, divine vision. The entire tree is the self, body, mind, and spirit, bound in one living pattern. And when the wind moves through its leaves, one can hear the whisper of the ancient wisdom that unites all life, the breath of creation itself. In that sound, Odin heard the truth that knowledge is not owned but received. The more one surrenders to the tree, the more it reveals. The roots demand humility. The branches grant revelation. Together they form the sacred cycle of knowing and being. In our modern age, where the sacred often feels distant, Yggdrasil stands as a reminder that the universe is not a machine of cold laws but a living organism, breathing through us. We are not separate from it. We are its cells, its sap, its thoughts. Every act of kindness strengthens a branch. Every cruelty gnaws a root. Every moment of awareness waters the tree with divine remembrance. To live with that awareness is to become a guardian of Yggdrasil, a keeper of balance. And perhaps, in some unseen way, every soul that awakens adds a little more green to its leaves, a little more light to its canopy. Because though the myths speak of gods and giants, wells and serpents, what they really speak of is us, our struggle to remember who we are, our hunger for meaning amid chaos, and our unbreakable connection to something far greater than we can comprehend. Yggdrasil is the answer whispered through the ages. You are part of the eternal tree, and the tree is part of you. The myth of Yggdrasil is not just an ancient story. It is a mirror that reflects how every culture once saw the world. Alive, conscious, interconnected. To the Norse, every stone, river, and gust of wind had a spirit, a presence. They lived in dialogue with creation. The tree that held the cosmos was not a symbol of distance between heaven and earth, but of union, an unbroken flow of vitality connecting gods, humans, and all living things. At the base of this great tree lies the well of Urd, the fountain of fate. Around it sit the 3 Norns, Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld, who weave the threads of all existence. Urd represents what has been, Verdandi what is, and Skuld what is yet to come. But they do not act as judges. They act as keepers of balance. Their weaving is not punishment nor reward. It is harmony. Each choice ripples outward, shaping the tapestry of all worlds. The Norse understood fate not as imprisonment, but as participation in a cosmic rhythm. To live honorably was to align oneself with that rhythm, to move with the flow of the tree rather than against it. This was called WYRD, a word without a perfect translation, meaning both fate and becoming. It suggested that destiny is not fixed but constantly woven through our actions, thoughts, and intentions. Thus, even the gods were bound by WYRD. Odin could foresee Ragnarok, yet could not prevent it, because the unfolding of creation itself must include destruction. Yggdrasil would tremble, wolves would devour the sun and moon, the sky would split open. But from that chaos, a new world would emerge. The tree would not die, it would renew. The cycle would continue. This idea, that existence is a perpetual rhythm of death and rebirth, echoes through nearly every ancient faith. The Egyptians spoke of Osiris, who was torn apart and reborn as the green god of vegetation. The Hindus envisioned the cosmic tree Ashvatha, whose roots grow upward toward the heavens and whose branches stretch downward into the material world, symbolizing the soul's descent into matter and its return to the divine. The Mayans revered the ceiba tree, whose branches reached into the heavens and whose roots plunged into the underworld. Everywhere, humanity seems to remember the same image: the axis, the pillar, the living link between planes of being. Why? Because it expresses something fundamental about the nature of consciousness. The ancients saw the universe not as a vast emptiness dotted with stars, but as a living organism. The tree is the pattern of that life. The roots are memory, the trunk is manifestation, and the branches are potential. When we meditate, dream, or reflect, we are in truth climbing that tree. Each thought is a branch, each insight a leaf catching the light of the divine. The more we ascend, the more we perceive the unity beneath diversity. That all gods, all myths, all faiths are but different expressions of one eternal truth. The ancients spoke of this unity in symbols because symbols can reach where words cannot. They speak to the soul in its native tongue. In the Norse worldview, this sacred structure of existence demanded reverence, courage, and participation. Life was not a spectator's journey. It was a warrior's path through the tree. Every trial, every loss, every act of love was part of that climb. Even suffering was sacred, because it revealed one's relationship with the divine fabric of reality. Odin himself embodied this truth. He was not merely a god of war. He was the god of wisdom gained through sacrifice. His hunger was not for domination, but for understanding. To learn the runes, he gave his eye. To grasp the mystery of life and death, he gave himself to the tree. And in that act, he became both seeker and sought, both the root and the branch. The runes he received, those cryptic shapes carved from the silence of Yggdrasil, were more than letters. Each rune held a fragment of the world's creative essence. To know them was to touch the deep structure of existence. The rune Fehu carried the energy of abundance, and Suz, the breath of divine inspiration, Algiz, the gesture of protection, Dagas, the light of transformation. Each was a living vibration, a doorway into the consciousness of the tree itself. To the Norse mystic, chanting or carving these runes was not superstition but communion. It was the act of harmonizing one's inner resonance with the universe's pulse. Every sound, every symbol, every rhythm of life was seen as part of the same vast symphony. The tree did not just hold the worlds, it sang them into being. If one listens carefully to the myth, one realizes that Yggdrasil's greatest secret is not in its height, its roots, or its creatures, but in its sound. The sagas say the tree creaks under the weight of existence. That sound is the vibration of life itself, the heartbeat of creation. It is the same pulse that mystics have sought across all time. The sacred Aum, the Logos, the word through which all things were made. And yet, the Norse vision remained distinct in its rawness. There was no promise that enlightenment would erase suffering. On the contrary, wisdom was to be found through it. The warrior who faced the storm without fear did not deny pain. He transcended it by accepting it as part of the divine order. In this sense, Yggdrasil is not a symbol of comfort, but of truth. It tells us that life's beauty and its sorrow are inseparable branches of the same tree. The serpent NHGGR, gnawing endlessly at the roots, is not merely evil. It represents the force of entropy, the cycle of decay that makes renewal possible. Without it, growth would stagnate. The stags that graze upon the leaves, the eagle that watches from the top, the squirrel Ratatosk who runs messages between them. These are not just fanciful creatures, but reflections of balance. Each plays a role in the tree's eternal dialogue between destruction and creation, shadow and light. In that intricate dance lies the Norse conception of divinity. Not perfection, but balance. Even the gods, mighty as they are, exist within the tree's law. They act, they err, they atone. Their stories mirror humanity's, because, in truth, they are humanity's ideals made manifest. Odin's thirst for wisdom is our own. Thor's courage our own. Freya's grief our own. The gods are mirrors through which we glimpse ourselves elevated, reminders of what we may become if we live with purpose and reverence. The poets who sang these tales knew that myth was never meant to be literal history. It was sacred psychology, a way to teach through wonder. The tree, the well, the Norns, the runes. These were not superstitions to them. They were realities experienced in states of heightened awareness, visions of how existence truly operates beyond the veil of appearances. That is why the image of Yggdrasil still haunts us today. Though we may no longer live in wooden halls or carve runes upon stones, something in us still feels its truth. The modern world, with its screens and noise, has not erased our ancient memory. Somewhere deep within, we still sense the roots stretching beneath us, still yearn for the connection between all things. When a person walks alone in a forest and feels a sudden quiet awe, it is the whisper of Yggdrasil returning to consciousness. When one suffers and grows wiser through pain, it is the tree's cycle unfolding within the soul. When humanity seeks to heal the earth, to rediscover unity after centuries of division, it is the old myth reawakening. For the Tree of Worlds is not gone, it has only gone unseen. If we could once more live as our ancestors did, aware that every breath, every stone, every life form participates in one vast organism, then perhaps Yggdrasil would be remembered not as legend, but as reality. For to the Norse mystic, the separation between myth and truth never existed. Myth was truth, spoken in the language of symbol rather than reason. And so, to stand before Yggdrasil in spirit is to stand before the mystery of being itself, to feel that we are both infinitely small and immeasurably vast. The same force that moves galaxies stirs within our hearts. The same light that glows in Asgard burns quietly behind our eyes. And when we live in awareness of that connection, the world ceases to feel like chaos and becomes a sacred pattern once again. Every act of kindness, every moment of reflection, every breath of gratitude, these are the ways we water the tree. The Norse sages would have said, each time you honor life, the branches strengthen. Each time you forget it, the leaves fall. And perhaps one day, when enough souls remember the sacredness of all things, the tree will bloom brighter than ever before. Not in myth, but in the hearts of the living. As centuries unfolded, the ancient narratives that once thrived under open skies and in sacred groves began to crystallize into formalized theology. The transition from myth to scripture was not an erasure, it was a transformation. The Yahwist, Elohist, and priestly authors of Genesis did not invent creation ex nihilo. They reshaped inherited motifs into a framework that reflected emerging monotheism. But deep beneath the surface of Genesis, older spirits still whisper. The serpent, the tree, the forbidden fruit, the creation from dust, these were not novel Hebrew symbols. They were archetypes shared across Sumer, Akkad, Babylon, Egypt, and Canaan. What the Bible did was to repurpose these fragments into a story about moral awakening and divine order. Something that spoke not to the cycle of nature, but to the fallibility of humankind. Take, for example, the serpent. In Mesopotamian mythology, serpents were neither purely evil nor purely good. They were symbols of regeneration, wisdom, and immortality. The god Ninjashzida, often depicted as a serpent, guarded the gates of heaven. The Babylonian deity Tiamat, a dragon serpent of primordial chaos, was slain to create the cosmos itself. To the Egyptians, the serpent was both the threat of Apep and the protection of Wadjet, an ambivalent sacred force. Yet, in Genesis, the serpent becomes the tempter, the one who brings ruin through knowledge. Why this shift? Because Yahweh's world was one of obedience. The older gods celebrated curiosity and the endless cycle of rebirth. The God of Israel demanded loyalty and moral boundaries. Knowledge, once sacred, became dangerous. It was no longer a gift, but a test. The forbidden fruit carries this same transformation. Ancient fertility myths linked sacred trees to goddesses of life and wisdom. Inanna had her Halupu tree, Ishtar her sacred date palm, and Eshiera her symbol. The Eshiera pole, a wooden emblem often planted near altars. Eating from the tree was not a sin in those stories. It was a sacred communion, a participation in divine vitality. In Genesis, however, that act becomes disobedience, humanity's first rebellion. The shift reveals a fundamental tension. Pagan myths taught that humans could ascend toward divinity, while the Hebrew version emphasized that humans must remain beneath it. The pagan world was cyclical: life, death, and rebirth in endless rhythm. The biblical worldview was linear: a single creation, a fall, a redemption, and an end. Even the making of Adam reflects this reinterpretation. In Sumerian mythology, the first man was Adamu, a being shaped from clay mixed with divine essence to bear the labor of the gods. In Egypt, Khnum molded humans on his potter's wheel. These tales were never about a fall. They were about participation in divine creativity. But in Genesis, man's creation is followed by prohibition. The first breath of life is shadowed by the threat of death. Eve's emergence from Adam's rib is another fascinating echo. The Sumerian goddess Ninti, whose name means both Lady of the Rib and Lady who makes live, was created to heal Enki's rib after he violated the divine order by eating sacred plants. The pun is identical: rib and life intertwined. This linguistic echo is too precise to be coincidence. It shows how mythic fragments migrated and mutated through oral retellings before settling into scripture. Yet, the greatest transformation lies not in the details, but in the tone. The pagan myths celebrated balance between gods and humans. The biblical story introduces hierarchy, a clear line separating the divine from the mortal. Where the Mesopotamian gods laughed, feasted, and quarreled among themselves, Yahweh stands alone, eternal, unreachable, absolute. Humanity is no longer part of the divine drama but its subject. This shift served a cultural purpose. The Hebrews were a people shaped by exile, conquest, and covenant. They needed not a pantheon of flawed gods but a moral axis, a single source of justice in a chaotic world. The rewriting of myth into moral law was an act of survival. Paganism explained the world. The Bible sought to explain suffering. And that suffering is written between every line of Genesis. The ground cursed, the woman in pain, the man laboring under the sun. These are not random punishments. They are existential truths framed as divine decree. Humanity's exile from Eden mirrors Israel's own exiles. From Egypt, from Babylon, from its land and gods. Eden was never just a garden. It was a memory of harmony lost to history. But even in exile, the echoes of paganism could not be silenced. The cherubim guarding the garden's gate resemble the Lamassu, winged guardians of Assyrian temples. The flaming sword recalls the solar weapons of the gods Shamash and Are. The river that flows from Eden divides into four, an ancient symbol of the world's totality, drawn from Mesopotamian cosmology. In this synthesis lies the genius of the Hebrew authors. They did not destroy myth, they redefined it. They took the chaos of many gods and molded it into a single moral universe. Yet, traces of the old world remain, like fossils beneath sacred text. When we read, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," we are not witnessing the invention of creation. We are hearing the final evolution of thousands of years of mythic storytelling. The divine word replaces the divine struggle. Order replaces conflict. Marduk no longer slays Tiamat. God speaks, and the chaos becomes cosmos. But perhaps the most human part of Genesis is its quiet tragedy. The serpent offers knowledge, the fruit brings awareness, and yet humanity is punished for seeing. The act of knowing, the very trait that defines us, becomes our curse. It's as if the story warns, enlightenment carries exile. The garden cannot coexist with consciousness. And that paradox, born from the ashes of older religions, is what gives Genesis its timeless weight. It is both a myth of loss and a mirror of awakening. Humanity steps out of the garden, clothed in shame but armed with awareness, banished yet free. The pagan myths saw gods within nature. The Hebrews placed God above it. And yet, the longing for unity, for that lost Eden, still lingers in the human heart. Perhaps that is why these stories endure, because they are not merely about beginnings, but about remembering what we lost when we learned to know. As the ancient tablets crumble and the languages fade, the shared memory of those first myths remains. From the clay of Sumer to the parchment of Genesis, the same truth endures, that humanity has always sought meaning between earth and sky, between dust and divinity. And though the gods have changed their names, the questions remain the same. Who made us? Why are we here? And why must wisdom come with suffering? Those questions echo across civilizations, whispered by the serpent, sung by the Sumerian priests, and written in the quiet breath of the biblical scribe. The story of Adam and Eve was not the first attempt to answer them. It was merely the latest chapter in humanity's oldest conversation. As we delve deeper into Yggdrasil, the Tree of Worlds, we begin to perceive that it is not merely a myth confined to the Norse imagination. Its presence, its structure, and its symbolism resonate across the tapestry of human consciousness, touching the hearts of cultures far removed by time and space. Yggdrasil's roots and branches are mirrors, not only of the cosmos, but of the human soul. To understand the tree is to glimpse the rhythm that unites the visible and invisible, the temporal and eternal. In the myths, Yggdrasil's roots penetrate the underworld, entwining with the waters of fate and the bones of the past. Here lies the realm of hell, the shadow of mortality, where all endings converge. And yet, the tree does not collapse beneath the weight of decay. It thrives, nourished by the very forces that seek to destroy it. The Norse saw this as the eternal balance, that life and death, creation and destruction, are not opposites but partners in a perpetual dance. The tree teaches that even in ruin, there is continuity, and in darkness, a hidden illumination. Above, the branches reach the heavens, stretching into realms unseen, inhabited by gods, eagles, and celestial beings. The highest branches are beyond comprehension, yet they bend to touch the human world through sacred intermediaries, symbols, myths, and rituals. Each leaf, shimmering in the wind, is a record of existence, a memory of every moment, every life, every choice. To the ancients, the tree was a living chronicle, recording not only the deeds of gods and heroes but the unfolding journey of all sentient beings. The creatures inhabiting Yggdrasil are themselves symbolic, teaching lessons of vigilance, communication, and consequence. Ratatosk, the squirrel, runs messages up and down the tree, carrying words between the eagle above and NHGGR below. This small but tireless messenger embodies the principle of connectivity, that every action, every whisper, every thought resonates throughout the cosmos. In many ways, Ratatosk is a reminder that no deed is isolated. Each ripple in the world touches countless others, seen and unseen. Similarly, the stags that graze upon the tree's foliage, with their antlers reaching toward the sky, are agents of transformation. Their constant feeding symbolizes both the consumption and renewal of energy, a natural cycle that ensures the vitality of the tree. Even NHGGR, gnawing at the roots, plays a vital role. It represents entropy, decay, and challenge. Without the serpent's persistent destruction, there would be no renewal, no dynamic tension, no evolution. In this way, the Norse presented a worldview in which struggle is sacred, and conflict is not to be shunned but understood as integral to the harmony of existence. Across time, scholars have compared Yggdrasil to sacred trees in other traditions. The Hindu Ashvatha or Bodhi tree shares its inverted cosmology, roots reaching upward, branches descending, symbolizing the descent of spirit into matter and its eventual return to the divine. The Mayan Ceiba tree, with its three-tiered structure connecting the underworld, earth, and sky, echoes the tree's role as axis mundi, the central pillar of creation. Even in Celtic lore, the world tree appears as a bridge between realms, a link between the physical and spiritual. Such parallels suggest a universal human recognition that life itself is structured as a vertical journey, a ladder of consciousness spanning realms. To ascend Yggdrasil is, therefore, to embark upon an inner journey as much as an outer one. The tree's imagery is not merely cosmological, it is psychological. Its roots invite introspection, asking us to confront the shadow, the hidden fears, and the forgotten memories that nourish our personal growth. Its trunk encourages steadfastness and presence, the cultivation of strength and virtue through grounded experience. Its branches and leaves inspire imagination, vision, and transcendence, the courage to reach beyond ordinary perception into the mysteries of existence. Odin's sacrifice at the tree exemplifies this path. Hanging for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear, he confronts both pain and insight, surrendering to the flow of cosmic truth. From this ordeal, he gains the runes, a symbolic language that encodes the principles of reality itself. These runes are more than letters. They are living symbols of energy, wisdom, and connection. To carve a rune, to speak it, is to resonate with the tree, to align with its rhythm, and to participate in the creative force that shapes the worlds. The Norns, weaving the fates at the Well of Urd, further reveal the tree's profound lessons. Time is not linear but a tapestry, each thread interdependent. The past is never gone, the future is never fixed. Every choice, no matter how small, is a thread in this vast cosmic weaving. Humanity, though mortal and fragile, is part of this pattern. Our actions echo across the branches and roots of Yggdrasil, influencing outcomes far beyond our perception. In this way, the Norse mythology teaches responsibility not as punishment but as recognition of the interconnectedness of all things. Even the seasonal cycles reflected in Yggdrasil's myth carry deep symbolic meaning. Winter, with its deathly stillness, mirrors the gnawing of NHGGR at the roots, a necessary period of decay and reflection. Spring, bursting with growth, mirrors the renewal of leaves, the resurgence of life. Summer and autumn represent maturation, the flourishing of energy, and the harvest of consequences. These cycles are not merely external. They reflect the internal rhythms of human consciousness. Life itself is a mirror of Yggdrasil's eternal dance. Modern interpreters have often sought to reduce Yggdrasil to a simple symbol, a tree, a myth, a cultural artifact. Yet such simplification misses its essence. The tree embodies complexity, ambiguity, and mystery. It resists total understanding, for to grasp it fully is to touch the infinite. Every aspect, root, branch, creature, deity, river, and leaf, carries layered meaning. It is a living system, both within the narrative of Norse culture and within the psyche of anyone who contemplates it deeply. In contemplating Yggdrasil, we are reminded that myths were not idle tales. They were education in symbol, meditation in narrative, and philosophy encoded in story. To hear the sagas, to study the runes, to understand the tree, is to reconnect with the ancient awareness that life is sacred, that every action resonates, and that the visible world is only one layer of reality. And yet, as we explore these depths, it is impossible to ignore our own yearning. The tree calls not only to our intellect but to our hearts. We feel its pull because it reflects a truth we instinctively know, that existence is a web, that life is a gift, that knowledge is responsibility, and that mystery is the medium through which the divine speaks. So, as we continue to trace the roots and climb the branches of Yggdrasil, we are reminded that this journey is ongoing. The tree invites us to explore further, to question more deeply, and to recognize that the sacred is not confined to temples, scrolls, or myths. It is alive in the world, in our choices, and in our awareness. If this journey through the hidden worlds of Yggdrasil has captured your imagination, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. The tree has many more secrets, and we have only begun to climb.